So did you see how TACO Trump has chickened out yet again? This is actually a story from last week that I meant to get to, so you may be aware of this. But big tough guy Donald Trump has chickened out yet again, this time on the issue of immigration and his mass deportations, which, you know, has always been a joke. I told you even before he took office that there wouldn't really be mass deportations. And if you look at the number, the truth of the matter is Trump is deporting fewer people than Barack Obama did and Joe Biden did. So how can that be on the one hand, while on the other hand, you know, we basically see all these horrible stories of, you know, peaceful immigrants, not criminals, because remember, he promised that he was going to be only going after the criminals. He doesn't seem to be going after the criminals at all. But we see story after story, horrible stories of ICE going after people and rounding people up. So on the one hand, how is it that we see all of that, while on the other hand, we look at the numbers, and his numbers lag behind Barack Obama and Joe Biden? And before I get to that, let me hit the taco story, the Trump chickening out story, because he announced last week that they are going to pause deportations of certain immigrants, specifically those who work in agriculture, on farms, and in the leisure industry, hotels most specifically. He's going to pause deportations of those people, which has a lot of people in MAGA world, you know, the people who are really, you know, pro mass deportations and everything, of which there are a lot. Those people are really pissed because this is essentially amnesty. These people are going to be exempt from Trump's deportation. They're going to be exempt from our immigration laws and be allowed to stay here. So why? Well, it goes back to the reason that I told you at the beginning there would never really be mass deportations. He would make it look like there are, and that's easy enough. He just wants to dupe the fools in his base, the Fox News audience. That's easy enough. I mean, they could just easily be fooled by, you know, Trump putting out bleats on Truth Social claiming that he's deported millions of people. The truth doesn't matter. All he's got to do is say it, and that's good enough for those fools. But the reason is because Donald Trump was bought and paid for by the oligarch class, big business. And, you know, a lot of those people need the cheap migrant labor workers, right? They need that, especially in industries like agriculture and in tourism and, you know, leisure and hospitality. You know, who do you think is cleaning hotel rooms and doing that kind of thing? Who do you think is picking the fruits and vegetables out in the field? That's all migrant labor. And, you know, those oligarchs who you know, own those companies and all of that and make their money off the backs of migrant labor, you're going to be damned if the puppet that they bought and paid to put in office is going to deport their cheap migrant labor. That's not going to happen. So that's why, you know, the orange buffoon had to put out that statement last week where he's pausing enforcement and deportations of those people. It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. The mass deportation was never going to happen for that very reason. But the reason why we're seeing such horrible stories of these people being brutalized by ICE is because he needs to have deportations, if for no other reason than to, you know, have it for the cameras to play on Fox News. And since we're going to exempt millions upon millions of migrants who work the fields and those kinds of things, who's left? Construction workers? Well, they're going to be exempt too. Same reason. So who's left? Well, not a whole lot of people are really left. And so you have criminals who they're not really deporting because it's hard to find those people. You got to go and hunt them down. They're not going to make it easy. Instead, Trump sends his thugs to Home Depot, to the parking lot, to round up people who are just looking for work and who maybe, they don't have a job in one of these industries where Trump is exempting those people. So he goes to the Home Depot parking lot, and kinds of raids, kinds of enforcement actions that is the subject of the reason for the protests in places like Los Angeles. So you go for those people. You go for the migrant mother who has her American citizen children in our schools. Because I saw this one video. It was heartbreaking. It was awful. A woman who was arrested for deportation on the way to pick up her kids from school. And they're handcuffing her, and she is pleading, begging and pleading in Spanish. My kids, she's scared to death. Who's going to pick up her kids? What are her kids going to do when they get out of school and their mother's not there? They're going to panic. They're going to be scared. This woman, I'm a parent. I know exactly what she was feeling. And they don't care. The Trump administration doesn't care. MAGA voters don't care. The Fox News audience doesn't care. In fact, they love that. They love to see fellow human beings in pain and misery, in panic, scared to death, them being ripped from their children. The Fox News crowd, the Trump voter, loves that. And they get those images for TV. And we get a lot of bad stories that upset people, make people protest and take to the streets. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't result in the deportation of tens of millions like Trump promised. It doesn't amount to mass deportations. It amounts to cruelty. It amounts, in terms of numbers, a drop in the bucket. That's why Barack Obama and Joe Biden, who did this in an orderly and humane fashion, actually had, greater numbers of deportations than Trump does. Because the oligarchs who own him, and let's face it, Donald Trump hires these people in his own properties. So Trump doesn't even really care about this issue. He just used it to manipulate the morons in the Fox News audience who he knows really care about this issue. Now, Trump would, if he could, make this a white-only country, but the truth is he doesn't really care too much. And he's not going to go against the oligarchs who bought and paid for his presidency. So he exempts whole classes of people, but in order to have some numbers of deportations, he goes for the low-hanging fruit. He goes for the people who are easy, who aren't going to put up any resistance. You could just send ICE to the Lowe's or Home Depot parking lot. And there you have hardworking people just trying to do an honest day's work to provide for themselves and their family. Those people are easy. So go after them. Go after the mom dropping off her kid at school. That's great TV. It's great TV unless you have any humanity. But so many of these people lack basic decency. They have no humanity for their fellow men, all the while wearing crosses around their necks, claiming to be Christians, treating fellow humans like absolute shit and reveling in their pain. But the truth is, MAGA doesn't see whole classes of people as humans. They see them as less than humans, just like, mustache guy in Germany did in the 30s and 40s. They called them animals. That's what Trump and his people call immigrants. They're animals. They're less than human. So we don't have to care if mothers are kidnapped off the street, afforded no due process, thrown into a detention camp when they were on their way to pick up their young children from school. Oftentimes American citizen children They don't care. When they see and hear the anguished cries of these mothers and fathers being ripped from their children, they like it. They take a sick joy and pleasure in it. It's sick. These people are sick. What this country is doing in our name is sick. But what it isn't is mass deportations. Instead, it's just isolated incidents of cruelty and inhumanity. But that's what they voted for. That's what they wanted. And that's what Trump is giving them. He's not giving them the mass deportations. He's saying he is. He's lying about it. But he's not. He's doing two things at once. He's giving the oligarchs who bought the presidency for him what they want, and that is millions of immigrants to give them cheap labor. And he's giving the Fox News audience and the base, the base of the Republican Party, those primary voters who support this piece of shit, he's giving them what they want. And that's the spectacle. That's the show. That's the cruelty. That's why Kristi Noem dresses up, plays for the Fox News audience, pretends she's going on raids and all this kind of crap. They all do it. They play for the camera. They play the part. They play for Fox News. And they're cruel and they're inhumane because that's what the Fox News audience wants. And that's how you get ahead in the Republican Party. It's sick. Anyway, thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.